Hey y'all, how's it going? Here is
What up?
another episode of the Heels of Time
Coming
with
at you live.
Derek and Theo.
And the host, Theo.
What up?
Yeah.
We have an interesting one for you today. It may blow your mind a little
Mhm.
bit, figuratively and spiritually,
Yeah.
because the juice is loose, so to speak. Derek's got a little juice, and it's loose because we're gonna take on a kind of a pretty big gentleman in the Wheel of Time series. I would think, wouldn't you say, Derek?
Oh, we wouldn't have Wheel of Time if it wasn't for what he did, right?
Pretty much, or at least one of the circles,
Right, at least one of the
time
uh,
frames, or whatever you want to call it.
iterations. Yeah.
One of the eras,
Good point.
epochs,
Good point.
ages. So none other than Lews, the Kinslayer.
Yeah.
Bam, Therin. Dum dum dum. He is neither a good guy or a bad guy. I would say he's kind of grayish, trying to do what he wanted to do. But I mean, in the scheme of things, from a certain perspective, he's a good guy.
From a certain point of view.
he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's been called
Although he's a little
arrogant.
crazy.
He's been called arrogant. He's been called a do-gooder at the expense of others. But yeah, then things kind of take a terrible turn for him.
A little bit, and scratch my temple for a reason, because yeah, he a little mental.
Oh, yeah. Well, he definitely loses it at some point.
Little bit.
I mean, he's a solid guy, and then something happens
And then he kind of goes, takes a
off
big
the
left turn, right turn, whatever you want to call it.
off the mega deep end.
Yeah, he's not so hot.
Mm,
So needless to say, he is a big character in the Wheel of Time, naturally, and there's going to be a stretch for some of you guys listening today, but we're going to compare him to Tiamat. Layden, you can consider maybe even Atlas, Telamon. So it sounds far-fetched, especially if you're just looking at it from a naming perspective, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of where does Lews come from, or just there. No, it's not quite as simple as the other ones that we've done in the past. I would say that that's pretty true.
right.
Except one of his I would say nickname, but another name of his is Telamon. So that
That's
kind of
right.
leads you to a little thing. So it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting one. I'd like to hear people's perspectives on it, if they agree with us, disagree with us, because this one might be a little, I would say, controversial, but it might be a little different than the other ones that we've done.
There might. This one has maybe a few steps in between. We take a little pit stop before we get to our destination. It's a connecting flight, so hold on, everybody.
It's going to be a little wild ride. So you're like, all right, who's Tiamat? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It actually goes back. It's a female in actuality, and she goes back real far. Actually, they're thinking first millennia ish, BCE, and I say ish because there's no real actual date per se. She is legitimately just a primordial dragon. She basically brings her death brings about the entire world, which is pretty interesting, especially from one big perspective. Her body's split in two. Okay, you're like, dang, that's savage. It was. It is a pretty big god battle, so to speak. And ironically, though, half becomes the heaven, half becomes the earth. It's really a mountain, so earth, mountain, and okay, close enough.
Okay. All right.
The interesting part happens to her face, and specifically her eyes. How many
Ooh.
eyes you got, Derek?
Two last time I counted.
Yeah, oh, hopefully. And boom, two rivers pour out of her eyes, and they
Really?
are
Okay.
historically considered the Tigris and the Euphrates River.
All right, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah. So she is a Babylonian, Babylonian god. So it goes back a little further. It also travels up to like Mesopotamia. She is referenced in Hellenistic period as well, which is there's not really a real iconographic, whatever, depiction of her way back. Only a Hellenistic, I don't say pictography of her, which is super bizarre. Lots of snakes, aka dragons, because there wasn't snake, dragon, serpent kind of thing. If you've noticed that from before.
In mythology, and we've said this before, I'm sure, but a great serpent is the same thing as what today we would think of as a dragon.
Yeah, so she really looks pretty bizarre. It's she's kind of freaky. So her body is a woman's body, and her legs are made of snakes. So snake, serpent, dragon. Okay, so it's not that far off. And her name is also funky. I'm not even going to pronounce it. I'm not even going to try to, but it means sea. So sea usually is considered feminine, except with Poseidon, but whatever. But back then it was also considered female. So it pretty interesting. So yeah, that's the first part. Cool. Hopefully everybody kind of... Did I miss anything, Derek? Does that kind of sum her up pretty much?
Well, yeah.
Or did I miss anything?
The first part, it sounds like we have a dragon, if you will, from ancient Babylonian, which Babylon resides between the two rivers, Mesopotamia.
Right.
And in her death, after being slayed, her body, you said, is rendered into two pieces, up high, down low.
Yep.
Sky, earth. And out of her eyes, that's where the two rivers of Mesopotamia, the Tigris and the Euphrates, come from. So
yes.
So far, yeah, we're on the same page so far.
All right. So, we're good. Hopefully the audience followed that part, because here's where the next, I guess, step would come from.
Yeah.
Which is, again, this one's kind of far out. So people might have heard of Atlas, right? He's the guy that was punished and needed to hold the world on his shoulders. Cool, right? Sounds good. Everybody's like, okay, I got that one. Sounds right. So there's actually a couple, I don't say varying myths on him, but they're divergent ones. The one that's the most common is, Atlas, Titan, punished by Zeus, got to hold up the world for all eternity. That's that, right? Cool. Then you got Hercules, and he's got to do his 10/12 labors. Cool.
All right.
One of them is to grab some apples. Again, cool. So he's like, man, all right, gotta go. He goes to the little apple orchard, and it's like, damn, all right. So this is where it kind of diverges. So one, Atlas is like, dang, I can grab these apples for you, but you gotta hold the world up, bro. And he's like, hell yeah, I can hold this junk up, not a problem. And Atlas, after millennia, or however long you want to talk about, is like, ha, I tricked you, bro. Yeah. And Hercules tricks him back, and it goes back to normal. Cool. The other one is that he's got to grab the apples still, except it's guarded by a dragon, and that dragon's name is Ladon.
Okay.
That one's the older version. Kind of makes sense because, hey, well, dragons can't exist, right? Whatever. So we'll just make a personification of a mega dude, Titan, Atlas.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you kind of was like, well, if dragons don't exist, we got to have a personification of something massive and gargantuan to do our thing. So, Atlas, there we go. So you're like, okay, don't get all of this. So what else? So Atlas is also known as Telamon,
Telamon,
as in Lews Therin
Lews
Telamon.
Therin, Telamon.
Right. So
Okay.
it gets a little funkier. Little funkier.
All
So,
right. With ya.
so Layden
Yeah, Layden
is a dragon.
is the dragon.
It's got 100 eyes.
100 eyes and replaces Telamon.
Yep. Actually got 100
Okay.
heads. My bad. There's more of a
100
Hydra.
heads.
Yeah, my bad.
So 200 eyes, whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so lots of stuff. So it gets a little interesting, and I will probably get into this a lot later with Hercules, dragons, constellations,
Oh, for sure. We're going there at some point.
heavenly
Cycles.
cycles, and influences,
Mm.
and it's pretty interesting. So Hercules fighting a dragon slash Atlas slash these other things are also depicted in the sky as constellations, as a little hint for what we're going to get into.
Okay.
And
That fits in nice and neat with a wheel,
yes, it
being
does.
that constellations go round and round every year.
Yes. So hopefully that made sense. It was a little bit of a double jump. So I hope you guys understood that part, like a little bit of the background. I'm sure I'll piggyback off of Derek a little bit once he gets into some of the wheel time comparisons and contrasts. But that was a little confusing and a lot of info to take in. So I'm going to chill it out for a second, let that absorb, let Derek get hydrated a little bit. And then
Going
I'll
from
let Derek
my,
take it away, and then I'll fill in some blanks if we need to. Does that sound like a plan to you?
Dude, that sounds good, my friend.
All
And
right,
I'm
all right.
drawing in my Dionysian well of power here.
Yes. I hear you.
Yeah, stay hydrated, my friend. Okay. So I'm just going to jump right into it, everybody. It is incredibly interesting to me that the world, in a way, the world as we know it, let me put it that way, not the beginning of the world, but let's say the world as we know it started with the death of Tiamat, because she's slain and her body creates the earth and the heavens. So in Randland, the world as they know it starts off with the death of Lews Therin Telamon. What do I mean by that? Well, his death is the harbinger of what they refer to as the breaking of the world. So, not, they say, where there is a mountain, there's now a lake or an ocean. Where there's a valley, there's a canyon. Everything's different, okay? So, Lews Therin starts this by drawing so much of the power that where he died, check this out, where he died stands Dragon Mountain, or Dragon Mount. So Lews Therin dies and becomes a mountain, but it doesn't just stop there. Like I said, the whole world has changed. Well, you mentioned that Tiamat, out of her eyes flow 2 rivers. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Lews Therin, when he dies, there's a river Aranon, and his death causes it to split into 2 rivers. It's a west and an east bank. And around, or in between those 2 rivers that form out of his death, much like Tiamat, is this city, this kind of mythological, legendary city, called Tar-Valon. Not Babylon, but Tar-Valon. So there's kind of even a phonetic similarity there. So far we have Lews Therin, the original dragon, dying and becoming a mountain, and in his death propagates 2 new rivers. Tiamat dies, half of her body becomes a mountain, and out of her eyes become the 2 rivers. So I'm already seeing some parallels here Maybe I have parallel mania, but I think there's more. If you're a little skeptical, I think there's more to ease your fears. So, check this out. You mentioned that Tiamat is related to the Hellenistic dragon Ladon. And Ladon is sometimes depicted as having 100 heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, a little backstory here. Lews Therin needs to slay the Dark One or put him away, imprison him, really, because you can't kill him, because the Dark One in Wheel of Time is kind of symbolic of evil deeds and mischief and that kind of stuff. So he comes up with a plan that says, I can make these 7 seals. Now, 7 is interesting because I in our pregame, we talked about this. You're probably going to get to it. Ladon, or Tiamat, sometimes has 7 heads instead of 100. But that might just be, a coincidence. That's okay. So the female Aes Sedai are like, nah, brah, we're not going to do your plan. We have a different plan. So he's like, fine, I'll do it with just the men. So Tiamat, or Ladon, has 100 heads. Lews Therin recruits 100 companions, 100 heads of the dragon. And we keep referring to Lews Therin as the dragon, which he is known as. But here's something that's very interesting. Later in the series, you get a clue as to why he's known as Lews Therin Telamon. And if they say this outright at some point, maybe one of our viewers will point me to the chapter in the page. But later we know that there's a group of people, a group of Aiel, that are referred to Siswa Amen. And they say that in Randland, that's Old Tongue for spears of the dragon. Siswa being spears, Amen being dragon. It's not too much of a stretch to then assert as a point that in Randland, the word Telamon means Telamon, or the dragon. So it's interesting that Robert Jordan said, hey, I'm going to connect Telamon to the dragon. And here we have in mythology, during the Hellenistic periods, they said, hey, let's connect the dragon, Ladon, to Telamon, Atlas the Enduring. So it's kind of like a juxtaposition, but it's like the same wordplay, only in reverse. You get what I'm saying, Theo?
I do.
Oh, all right. So let me back up a little bit. So Telamon is the dragon. And this is the dragon that has 100 companions, or the dragon with 100 heads. Very interesting parallel there.
I'm going to stop you right there, though.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Before we get, people are going to be up in arms and be like, whoa, what? This is like one little snippet, because Telamon was also somebody different. It says, and Derek, I'm probably going to surprise you on this one.
No, go for it, man.
So, he technically was all that stuff. However, he was also dad of Ajax, which, if you're familiar with the Trojan War, he was like one of the mega dudes that fought with the Greeks, on the Greek side of things.
On the Greek side?
On the Greek side.
All right.
So, he also did brawl with Hercules, as in with Hercules. And he was also along the trip, voyage, whatever you want to call it, with Jason of the Argonauts, a.k.a. grabbing that golden fleece.
Okay.
So, just want to let people know that, too, that I'm not ignoring that fact or that little aspect of things. But I just want to throw that in there before people are like, what?
So you're saying there's another Telamon that was strong enough to fight with Hercules?
With him, not at him, but with him.
But shoulder to shoulder with him.
Ish.
Sure.
Ish. Yeah.
Well, that's actually interesting, and this might have to be another show because I have something for you.
Trickerations.
So I'm amateur at this, but I do understand that Hercules dies by submitting himself to a pyre of fire.
I mean, everybody dies with the pyre of fire back in the day.
I understand also, though, given that Hercules starts his burden, his tribulations, his trials, because he became Hercules' kinslayer.
Well, yeah.
He's right.
Kratos
So,
style.
In reverse order, in true Robert Jordan fashion, Lews Therin Telamon becomes Lews Therin Kinslayer. Because as he is made mad, not by Hera, but by the Dark One, he slays his own family, thinking that they're some kind of evil force.
Ironically, kind of like a video game we all know.
Schmods of Schmore.
Pretty much.
So we have Lews Therin Kinslayer. Now, how does he die? Oh, he engulfs himself in a pyre of flame. And I say pyre of flame, if everyone's like, well, it's not like someone made a pyre. Okay, fine. But it's a column of flame. It's not like he just lights himself on fire. It's a beam of white light coming from the heavens. And you could call it white holy light, because the word holy originates from just meaning high place. So this light comes from a high place. It's a holy light. And it engulfs him and disintegrates him to nothingness, starting the breaking, turning the ground beneath into an eruption that ends up being Dragon Mount. So
it's also kind of like a flame of a dragon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dragon fire. And we'll get to at least a short snippet of how Lews compares to Hercules or Heracles, however you want to say it, Roman or Greek. But I would like to say that Lews is Hercules. Other folks would like to say it's Lucifer. And I think that might even stand up to some water, so to speak, and that might have to be at least a short snippet. But back on track, we have this weird duality yet again as we bring up in these episodes. It's not just syncretism saying, oh, I'm going to take Gandalf and turn her into Maureen. It's different stuff. It's combining things that really don't or really shouldn't belong together. So we talk about maybe Rand having some feminine and masculine attributes. Well, Lews Therin seems to be both the dragon and Hercules, even though, as we will get to, teaser, Hercules and Ladin are in the sky. They fight season to season to season.
In a never-ending battle.
In a never-ending battle where we always know when one of them has the upper hand, and we always know when the other has the upper hand. But we always know that if we can just wait long enough, the tides will change. The last mega point I have, unless I sidetrack a little bit, is that Lews Therin is defeated when he's poisoned by the Dark One. He's kind of tainted. He's kind of poisoned in this way. So, now you mentioned this in pregame.
Mm-hmm.
You laid some knowledge on me. I don't remember if you recalled it here, but in the version of the Hesperian apple trope,
Mm-hmm.
where Hercules defeats the dragon, how does he do it again? It's with a
poisoned arrow.
He's arrow.
He's like, man, this thing, whatever. It's
So
actually kind of easy, kind of ironic.
So he poisons the dragon. Well, Lews Therin is poisoned, and in this case, it's his mind that's poisoned, and that's what draws him to rage and become Lews Therin Kinslayer, slaying his family. Well, isn't that interesting that these two dragons are both defeated by being poisoned? And in a twist, in a very cruel twist, instead of like coming to terms with things and atoning like Hercules gets to, Lews Therin, like much like a band-aid being ripped off of an old wound, is all at once healed of his apparent madness, at least some of it, at least enough of it, to see what he has done, to see that he has killed the love of his life, the children that they bore, his friends, his family, gone. And in this, which some might call true madness, is when he decides to take it upon himself to end himself in the column of fire, much like Hercules submitting himself to the pyre. So in this way, Lews Therin, much like Tiamat, Ladin, is defeated by poison. So what do you think about that, Theo?
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, not crazy in like a oh my gosh crazy way, but crazy that it would suck. Like, if to be honest, if I accidentally like killed everybody I knew, I'd feel a little crappy about it.
Well, yeah,
especially if I didn't mean it
all at once.
Yeah, and it's just boom, like almost like a cruel joke, and that'd be brutal. So I don't blame him for doing what he did and going a little off the deep end and feeling really crappy about things. But in a way, he does try to redeem himself, though, through Rand.
That's a good point. So, much like a cycle, we see Tiamat, well, if you agree with us, we see Lews Therin coming back within Rand, within his thoughts, in a way. Kind of almost like a companion or a guide. And a very interesting combination, which some might say would give Rand a second pair of eyes, or 4 eyes. Some might draw a comparison to Rand and another mythical character with 4 eyes, known as Marduk. But that's definitely for another time.
A little bit. Just a little.
So, in conclusion here, let me just spell it out, because I know we jumped through a lot of hoops.
Go for it.
We have Lews Therin, the dragon, Lews Therin Telamon. And over here, we have a Hellenistic version of the Atlas story, Atlas Telamon, known as Ladin the dragon. Lews Therin, the dragon, has 100 companions. Ladin the dragon has 100 heads, or Tiamat, depending on the version. Tiamat, in her death, creates the heavens and the earth, or as we know it, as I like to say. Lews Therin Telamon, he beams a fire from heaven and then reshapes the earth. Tiamat's out of her eyes become the Tigris and Euphrates. Lews Therin splits the river Aranon to become 2 rivers. Tiamat's story originates in Babylon. Lews Therin's rivers surround what has come to be known as Tarvalon. So Tiamat, Ladin's version of Tiamat. And do your own research. See why I keep saying Ladin and Tiamat are related. Because no doubt they are. That's just not something that we don't have that level of academia to explain it on this show. That's something for y'all to look into yourself. But it ends with Ladin being killed by poison, and the dragon Lews Therin Telamon being killed by poison, in a way. So, make your own decisions. But we see some parallels here. We see some amazing storytelling that says, once upon a time, this happened to Lews Therin Telamon, the dragon. And then we see once upon a time, this is the story of Tiamat, this is the story of Atlas, this is the story of Ladin. And if it's a circle, as Robert Jordan likes to say, a wheel, then it's almost as if, well, when things come back around, they're referencing the old stuff, but things change. They don't have to be the same names. It's the same characters, though. So I'm going to give you the last word, Theo. What do you have to say about all this?
Now, you summed that up beautifully, man. Probably more eloquently than I might have been able to do. So that's awesome. And I will say this, and how everything is like a circle, you could also take it in a totally different light and say, in a way, what is myth, right? It's just storytelling through the ages, and it always changes. It's like the telephone game, but in age after age, time after time, it shifts a little bit. So you do your own research, do your own thing, look into some of the classical stuff that we've maybe brought up in this episode or in previous ones. And the nice thing is, especially with modern storytelling in the fantasy land, a lot of different authors, not just Robert Jordan, but other authors have done similar things, taking ancient classical mythologies from around the world and develop their characters around them. Not necessarily one for one, but here and there, which is brilliant. It gets people reading and into like new stuff, and at the same time a retelling of an ancient myth, which could get people telling that like a wheel.
Yeah,
So
good stuff,
that was a little philosophical and pretty
I love
cool.
it.
So I always dug that kind of stuff growing up and learning about it. So I hope you guys enjoy what we have to say, and if that leads people to hopefully read, that's a good thing. So
And I'm just gonna throw
Go
this
for
out
it.
there. If we get 1,000 followers,
hey,
Theo is gonna do the same thing we've been doing for Wheel of Time to Harry Potter.
that is
So
true.
if there are any sweet Harry Potter fans out there, tell your friends to watch our show, and you will see all the parallels to Harry Potter and ancient mythology on our same show.
And there's a lot of those. Lots. And that is actually less of a jump. Well, at least for me, it was less than from a jump. So, all in all, I think today was a good day, y'all. I hope everybody enjoyed watching this, because I know we enjoy doing it. So
Heck
hopefully
yeah.
that comes off. And have a good week. We are the Heels of Time. Obviously, you have our email address and all of our different channels. So, peace, and we'll see you same time, hopefully, next week.